Hi, this is Dustin Stockton, president of the America First Project and a community liaison with Gun Owners of America, coming to you from outside the Supreme Court, where we are hoping to add another honest, original intent jurist to the Supreme Court. President Trump has nominated Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court of the United States. He has a record of not being an activist on the bench. He understands the judiciary's role and the balance of power within the government, and he's getting support from both Democrats and Republicans because it's hard to argue with his record and the opinions that he has provided over the years as a judge working his way up to the Supreme Court. So we need to make sure that we confirm Judge Gorsuch to replace the legend, Justice Scalia, who really was the leading force behind the original intent interpretation of the Constitution. It is so critical that we keep that going because an activist bench can really upend a lot of the rights that we cherish in our country. So please take a moment, reach out to your senators, tell them to support and confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court of the United States. Let's put another original intent jurist on the bench, and let's keep America's freedom and rights out of the hands of the activists on the Supreme Court right now. So again, please take a moment. You can find the petition down in the comments. Reach out to your senators. Tell them to stop playing games and confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch. Now, one of the things that's come up is the Supreme Court nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch. And I know that lots of people have questions about his previous rulings on the Second Amendment and whether or not the Second Amendment community should really be backing this guy. So to help us answer those questions, I brought in Executive Director Erich Pratt. He's been in this battle for, 3 decades plus now. And knows the ins and outs. So, Judge Neil Gorsuch, should we support him?
He's definitely an improvement from Merrick Garland, who President Obama had put forward.
That's a pretty low bar.
It is a low bar, but interestingly enough, the New York Times, whereas they placed Merrick Garland being the third most liberal judge if he would have gotten onto the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch will be the second most conservative, only second to Judge Thomas. He has a record of conservative constitutional activism when he was in college that's carried through his opinions, and we've seen him make Second Amendment arguments as a judge on the court. So, while we certainly miss Scalia, it's been said that Gorsuch is in the mold of a Scalia, and I think that's accurate to say that.
Yeah, so those are some big shoes to fill. I mean, he really is the main force, or Justice Scalia, of course, was one of the main force behind originalists,
right.
Original intent arguments. And it's so important to keep the Supreme Court from going activist, that they stick to that original intent. So looking and reviewing through some of his cases, do you see anything that would suggest that he would be an activist on the court, or does he understand the role of what the court is supposed to be doing?
Well, I think he's the exact opposite of an activist, which may even frustrate some good people who would maybe like to see somebody be an activist judge for the good.
Right.
But
it's a dangerous way to go.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It is, and so I appreciate the fact that he respects the Constitution. And on Second Amendment issues, in the Gomez-Paris case, for example, he argued in favor of a felon being in possession of a gun. Now, it was kind of an interesting situation where, the law says that you have to know that you are a felon in possession of a gun, and the facts seem to indicate that perhaps the previous judge hadn't clearly communicated that to him. But this is a very important thing because as the Fifth Amendment says, nobody can be deprived of their life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Right. And so this knowing standard is part of that, establishing that due process and fleshing out due process. And so and I realize sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh well, are we just talking about getting bad guys off on technicalities? Not at all. I mean, you know, Dustin, that there's a lot of military veterans right now who are in the NICS system because they were suffering from PTSD, you know, bad effects from being overseas and fighting for our country. They go for counseling to the VA, and then they end up getting their rights taken away from them, right? So there's over 257,000 of them that have been placed into the NICS system. Many of them did not know that their names were put on that list. And so there you have potentially a felon who didn't know he was in possession of a firearm. That's why what Gorsuch was arguing in that Gomez-Perez case is so important.
Yeah, well, and it can really serve as a barrier to a lot of veterans I know for seeking help because they're afraid they're going to lose their rights, so they may not go seek the help that they need for PTSD. So that all sounds very encouraging. So we're going to support Judge Gorsuch's confirmation.
Gun Owners of America is urging people to contact their senators and ask for an aye vote for the senator. Absolutely.
Yep, and they need to move it along. We're not going to deal with any of these delay tactics that we've become so used to. So if you've got a moment, you can go to the Gun Owners of America website, or we've got links posted probably in the description of this video or in the comment section. Click on those links and tell your senators that they need to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch for all the reasons that Eric just laid out. And if you want to put the Second Amendment on offense, I've been working with Gun Owners of America for several years. This organization for 30 years has been the no-compromise gun rights organization. And now we've got everything in place to put the Second Amendment on offense, and we could really use you as a member. Usually memberships start at just $20, and you won't regret it. And we're going to do great things together. So, Eric, thank you so much for having me and letting me be a part of this amazing organization.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you, Dustin.
Always a pleasure.